Alright, welcome back. We are on a short week. We were off yesterday for Juneteenth and started today. I think they're doing civil case today. I saw a jury lining up right outside the courtroom. But we are not in court this week on this short week. We may, if civil case breaks down, we may be able to put some stuff together. That's a part that probably you don't need to know everything that goes on, and surely you're not interested in everything. But what generally happens is there's such a small amount of time for criminal cases that a lot of times if a civil case breaks down, then what we do is ask the judge to remain and hear some guilty pleas from the jail, do some motions, that sort of stuff. Real quickly on the system, you've got the Supreme Court of South Carolina, you've got the Court of Appeals, and right below that is the District Court, or what we call Circuit Court. And that court, which you'll see in Conway, that court is broken down into civil and criminal. And we add same judges, but we label the criminal court general sessions, and we label the civil common pleas. It's just terminology that's held over. So there's a judge at the district court level that is doing common pleas this week, but it would be the same judge if he had dual authority that would do criminal and civil. So we ask him a lot of times to hang back and do some of the stuff. It's pretty ineffective because a lot of the stuff that we do takes sending out subpoenas, being planned well in advance. It's almost like driving a cruise ship. It's very hard to turn everything around at the last second on a cruise ship. But if you were in a motorboat or something smaller, you could spin it on a dime. You just can't do that in court. But we try, because even getting 4 or 5 or 10 is better than nothing. Last week was a lot of pleas, and one of those pleas was Baby Boy Horry. This was a case that sort of captured our imagination from back 10 or 12 years ago, where the child was found dead in the woods, and for an infant just had been born, and at the time there was not enough technology to figure out who the person that had put that child in the woods was. Over a decade, with the advances in DNA, we were able to work with the police, figure that out, and it came down to a lady that now lives in Florida. Her name's Jennifer Sahr. Heartbreaking in that the father of that baby didn't know he was the father of that baby, had no clue. The basic thing is that both of them, the father and the mother, were students at Coastal. At times they would meet up. They never really dated. They were not boyfriend and girlfriend, but they'd meet up at parties and get together. And apparently, from one of those get-togethers, the young lady got pregnant. She says that she did not know she was pregnant. She was 19 or maybe 20 at the time. At the end of the school year, she goes into labor, and during that there was not a lot of people around. It was the end of the semester. She has the baby, and she puts the baby in a box and puts the box in the woods. We believe that the baby was born alive and was alive when he was put into the box. The defense is saying, something else. We had proof. We were ready to go to trial, and we had worked hand in hand with the police at that time. Because it took over 10 years to figure out what had taken place, I think that threw a little bit of a wrinkle, not in our case. Our case continued to get better as we were able to figure out who did what, but from the judge's perspective, it was our obligation to show that this was a really, really bad crime, and that is because of that really bad crime, the punishment should be really bad. From the defense's perspective, it's, look, she did a terrible thing, but a lot of time has passed, and she is now a mother of two. She's doing everything you would want her to do. She volunteers at the church and at the school, and she has lived a really good life. And that put us asking for 20 to 30 years and put the defense asking for probation. The judge did a pre-sentence investigation and came up with a sentence of 10 years suspended to 4 years. Not exactly, what we would have had, what we would have done, but obviously they don't allow the state to be the judge, juror, and executioner. So the system worked. Obviously we were asking for more time, but it was able to, we were able to bring some closure to the father. Just a terrible situation. In another courtroom, young man, 28, Stephen Johnson, he's from Loris. He pled guilty to manslaughter, a charge that took place in Loris. There were several. It was certainly enough for the police to make an arrest for murder. A lot of the witnesses, after some time had passed, had changed their statements. Every time that happens, we have to turn that over to the defense. He pled guilty to manslaughter and received 12 years in prison and 5 years probation. Obviously, you would want a loss of life to carry more time than 12 years, but sometimes you're stuck with whatever the witnesses are saying. And if the witness says A, as soon as the police get up there and talk to them about it, and then change that, even in the small ways. The guy was wearing a yellow shirt. I don't remember what color shirt he was wearing. That can have an effect on the case. Now, if everything else is great about the case, you can get past a lot of that stuff. If it's razor thin to begin with and 2 or 3 witnesses change their statements, you got to take that into account. So it is, every one of these cases are different, not only as they go down, but also as to what can be proven in court. There is always, every time, where I'm sitting there watching it and I say, I know this occurred, I know that happened. That is not the deciding factor. It is what can I prove. And we talk about this all the time, but the police, when they go in front of a magistrate and get an arrest warrant, it's like a seesaw. It's more likely than not that a crime was committed and committed by this defendant. It's 51%. One thing that we don't talk about all the time is that the police, in getting that 51%, can use hearsay, they can use all sorts of evidence that'll never come in at trial. So when the case is then given over to the prosecutor, it is, you got something at about 55, 56%, you got enough for an arrest, but do you have enough to go beyond a reasonable doubt, which is about 85%. Sometimes you can't do that. So we'll talk about it again next week on any of the cases. Well, there won't be any cases this week. So if you got any questions or comments, do like you always do and leave them in the comment section, and we will be sure to try to answer them.